What is up? We're live. I think you guys can hear me. 3 a.m. in Switzerland. Hey. It's going to be a replay. Let me plug this little headphones. God, it's so dark right now. Senor.
Really dark.
Isaac.
I'm here.
So what's funny is that we're both in the same house in different rooms.
There's only one good spot for Wi-Fi in Montana, and it's Alex's house.
That's what the good internet is, huh?
It's not at my house. I'll tell you that much.
Shit. I think these AirPods might have died. Quite
I
interesting.
still hear you, though.
Yeah. I just don't want any feedback, coming up. Let's see if they can get them back now. I've used them quite intensely today. Dude, as soon as we started this thing, it got even darker. I look like a geek from my bedroom, just like a little light, just a light in the night.
You're a Twitch streamer right now.
So it's good. There's no feedback from your voice?
I don't hear any.
Okay. I hear a bit of feedback. I don't know where that's coming from. It's going to drive me crazy. All right. Let me try the big bows. So what do you have your Coco Fresco?
I do have a Coco Fresco. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just reading the questions here. Dude, the comments.
What are you guys drinking?
I'm trying to see what they're drinking here. Some film shooters.
All right. Got new headphones on now. Oh, yeah.
It's a little glitchy. Sounds fine.
A little glitchy. Sounds fine. Did the mic change?
I don't know. How do I sound? Am I glitchy?
You sound good. Horchata. That's the guy. Good work drinking horchata. I missed that. Definitely dark and stormy. Well, I can hear the rain falling too. Okay, we're in the middle of the big rainstorm. That's kind of cool.
I don't think it's rain. I think it's hail. It's hitting the window.
Doing webinars in Montana.
Yeah.
Whoa, big hailstorm. I wish you guys could see this. Anyways, thanks everybody for joining. I don't know how many people there is, but it seems like there's a fair amount of people in the chat, so this is exciting. I got here. Oh, somebody's talking in my behalf. Must be Graham Remington. Can't hear or see Alex. Wow. Okay, Eric's got no issues. Sweet. Thanks, NASA. Always watching. Yeah, I can't see you guys.
I'm seeing that we're getting some feedback.
There's not much to see anyways. We're so dark.
Always the technical issues.
I can't hear Isaac. I can see both. Okay. Well, this is like this is the best.
They hear us loud and clear. Awesome. About how it's always technical difficulties, no matter how much you try.
Sorry, guys. Try a different browser. Unplug your router. Kind of like the customer service answer. Have you tried unplugging your router?
Did you turn it off? Did you turn it on?
Yeah, try that and come back because I think some people here work. So I don't think it's on our end. But anyways, we still have to apologize for our systems. So thanks for tuning in. I have here Isaac Johnston, which is on top of being a freelancer, a filmmaker, is also my friend. So I feel like this is going to be a solid discussion hangout.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Just because, I mean, I've known you for 5 years now, and I've seen you go from the vacation rental company manager, which is cool, to a freelance photographer, which I think is cooler. So I want to hear about that. I mean, no, your old job was cool, and we're going to talk about that. But I think that what you've done in a few years is really interesting, and I think that a lot of you guys can learn from that because Isaac didn't really have any sort of massive tailwind from Instagram. It wasn't like, suggested user list back in the day, like a lot of us. So there is a lot of hustle and a lot of energy. So if there's one big takeaway from this, 2 big takeaways, let's say, is one, I hope you can sink in Isaac's energy because it knows no bounds. And then two, I hope you can also get as much insights from Isaac because the reason we can hang out together a lot is because we're both very thirsty for learning. And I think Isaac has a thirst for learning that has taken him where he is and is going to take him even further. So with that said, I just want to remind you guys that Isaac and I have made a workshop on Strollworks, and I think the pre-order ends on
Thursday at midnight.
Thursday at midnight. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it on the notes. Thursday at midnight. So we can only cover so much in 1 hour, right? We're going to do our best to go through a bunch of stuff, answer you guys' questions at the end, and we'll keep 20 minutes for that. And after that, you can pick it up in the workshop because, again, there's so much we can cover in an hour. The workshop will still be on pre-order pricing, which is $75, and that ends on Thursday then. So again, not again, actually, it's in the workshop page, but today and Isaac's workshop is about removing barriers. Your workshop is about removing barriers. And I think that's what you've always done, is going sort of around the perceived problems that, we think we might have as a starting photographer, filmmaker, to problem solving, to find the solutions to these problems. And I think that is your strongest suit. That combined with a thirst for learning, it gives us this killer combo. So I like that.
Appreciate that. It's nice to hear somebody else tell me what they think my strongest my strengths are. It's it's good to hear. I mean, for me, I don't know how smart I am. I just know that I'm always excited to learn new stuff, especially with freelancing, because it's interesting. And I kind of just don't take the typical, you can't do that as an answer. Like, I just don't, because that's just kind of how I was raised. And also it sounds, just not being able to do stuff always sounds boring. I just always want to do stuff, always. So yeah, that's just kind of the kind of the basis. So you're right, it is kind of the basis for what I do, but it's not like a planned strategy in my brain. It's just kind of the way that it is.
Yeah, and I think this is what gives you an edge over the not average or standard, but the run-of-the-mill starting photographer, which is only trying to learn about photography, but there's so many other things to learn from. And if you have a big thirst for that, for all the aspects of photography, not only making photos, which is big, but not the biggest perhaps, that will, take you where you are. So I want to dive back to when I met you, if you'd like, back in 2015. So for the background, I rolled into Montana looking for a place to sleep for a few weeks or months. And you and I connected over the internet. You're running Montana's Best Vacation Rentals. For you guys who remember that, old days. But I reached out to you and you were happy to accommodate us, right? And so I met you there at this coffee shop with Benji at the time. And I remember just seeing, your interest in what we're doing, right? So that's what really struck out to me is the curiosity. And then how you were able to take a lot of time off to come sort of help me on some shoots, to help me produce a lot of shoots for me back in the day. So not everybody is going to want to take a chance on that, right? So what made you, just like take all these days off from a company that needs you, from employees that need you, to go take some days off, sometimes unpaid, just like, I'm happy to help, don't worry about it. It's like, I'd like to pay you. So what was going through your mind? Why did you decide to do that?
Well, so a lot of things, like for me, I was always taught just to be valuable if you can be. And for me, that meant that in my family, that always meant just giving of your time. And I thought that what you were doing was really interesting. I knew that it wasn't something that comes to Montana at the time. There was not very many people I had met that were doing photography at that level. And in the business, my strengths had been team leadership and marketing. And I knew that social media marketing was this huge piece, but like I would go to a conference and there'd be like somebody who had 1,000 followers on Facebook and would be like telling you about social media marketing. And then there'd be like, or like there'd be like an online class from somebody who worked at an agency, and they wouldn't be able to tell you like specifics because they again didn't have any followers. And so I saw you as somebody who was kind of figuring it out on their own. They were telling an interesting story. They weren't marketing. They were just giving value to people by telling an interesting story. And I thought, boy, that's a guy that I would like to learn from. And so I did kind of mental math. Like, I'd love to help this guy. I have something that I can give him, which is a place to stay. I have stories that he can tell, which I knew those were valuable for somebody who wants to tell stories for a living. giving them a good story is always going to be one of the most valuable things you can do. And I kind of did this mental calculation in my brain and then told my wife about it. I was like, look, I can either go to marketing classes and I can go to photography classes at like our local community college and pay a lot of money and a lot of time to do it and learn from somebody who's not out there actively doing it. They may have done it in the past and now are teaching. Or I can just take time off and make sure that Alex, is supported, that he has cool stories to tell, and I can go hang out with him and learn from somebody who's the top right now in social media marketing in the outdoor or Montana space. Because at this time, I had no interest in doing it myself. I only had interest in marketing this business. No, none. No, I was, in my mind, I was a business person. And the only goal was to increase basically awareness for the business and what products we were offering so that people could come and have a great time and tell everybody else and so on and so forth. So that was for me. I was like, I want to learn this.
I remember I had to convince you to get an Instagram for yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, get one for yourself.
I was not interested. I had MySpace, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and deleted them all. Deleted them, just gone. Completely off social. It was like, as soon as my mom and her friends were on there, I wasn't interested. Not because of them, but because of the things they would talk about were like boring to me. It wasn't inspirational. It was like, it was like, just wasn't inspirational for me. So I would just get it out of my life. So yeah, you convinced me to when I started taking photos, you're like, those are pretty good. You should share them for yourself. I was like, nah, that's all right. I just want to add these to the business and then we'll go from there. But I finally did. I think like 3 or 4 months after we met, I finally got my own account. Yeah.
So in the whole journey, I mean, I want to read this quote that's on the website that I think is really interesting, which says, 4 years ago, that's something you said. 4 years ago, I quit my job and became a full-time freelance creator. It was scary. I made so many mistakes, but I learned more than I ever thought I could. And now I want to share the strategies I used to keep making my art and get paid to do it.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, what was your biggest lesson from your 4-day journey?
My 4-year journey.
Yeah.
Gosh, I think the biggest lesson is just kind of, the biggest one for me was to lean into it. Like, I have this tendency to kind of obsess about things that I'm really interested in, just kind of like research them to the T, or just basically like any free moment I have, I want to learn more about it. And oftentimes that can be detrimental because if I'm into something that doesn't go anywhere, doesn't make any money, doesn't do anything, it can be detrimental. But for me, I knew that this was going to lead to a lifestyle that I wanted, and eventually to hopefully the same kind of money or more money than I used to make. And so I just refused to be distracted with anything else. I just wanted to lean into this 100%. So I guess that would be the biggest lesson is, if this is really, I would say to somebody who's watching this, if this is really what you think you want to do, even if you're not 100% sure, but you're like, if I don't try, I'm going to regret this, then just lean into it 1000%, not 100%. Just make it your thing. And then, if you spend a year doing this and and you find out it's not your thing, at least you gave it a huge try, that you tried 100%. So that's what I learned. And that's probably the biggest lesson that I want people to come away with.
Lean into it. Full send.
Yeah. So,
because some people advocate doing part-time, right? What's your take on that? Some people are like, oh, just keep your day job if it's good and then lean into it, slowly.
Oh, you absolutely. I'm not saying you have to like not have a real job and you can't just like start freelancing and not have any clients. That's not going to work. We all know that. I think there's the term that Dave Ramsey used to say when I used to listen to him back in the day. And he's like, look, you can do your dream job, but you need to make sure that the boat is close to shore before you jump for it, or you're going to get wet. And what he meant by that was that like, you better be making some income from your freelancing before you decide to do it full time. You better know how to get clients. You better know how to actually do the work and how to deliver the work. And so, part-time is fine. What I'm saying by lean into it is lean into, when you get off work, instead of Netflixing, like do a workshop, or instead of playing Candy Crush on your phone, research, how to build a pitch deck or something. Like research the all of the things, the ancillary like veins of photography and what you need to know to freelance. Research that all, and like use your time outside of work to do that, and use your lunch breaks, and use the time that you sit in the morning with your coffee before you go to work on your phone. Use the time on your phone to research things that will teach you about freelancing. That's what I mean by lean into it. I'm not saying like quit your job right away, because that's not going to work.
Yeah. Do you remember, I'm curious on that one because we've never actually talked about this. Do you remember your first gig, paid gig?
So, so the first time I ever went on a job with you was also my first paid gig. I don't know how I did that, but I had, I think I just knew innately that there was more value than I was bringing to the table. But you hired me to be a producer and go to Peru with you. And I had only been doing photography at that point 5 months. But I knew I was going to Peru. So I was like, I can find something for this. And I knew I needed some gear. So I reached out to like a bunch of companies, I got a bunch more no's, or we're not interested, or we can just give you gear. But I think I got $700 from backcountry.com, as well as about $2,000 worth of gear. I don't know if that would work anymore, but yeah, I had 7,000 followers, and I was like, look, this is what I'm doing. It's going to be awesome. Here's what I'm going to give you. But it helped that I had done, I was managing an entire vacation rental company with 65 homes under management. So I knew business. I knew that. So I could go and talk to a business person at backcountry.com and explain what value I was going to give them. But it was a huge reach, 7,000 followers, and I got a $700 job for social and providing images. And I barely knew how to take photos. I mean, barely knew how to take photos, but that was the first one. Yeah.
That was the first one.
Yeah. I don't even know. See, because with that, like I was selling the whole thing of going to Peru and being next to you. And like, I was definitely like selling more than I had. So I think my first like real job didn't come for like another 6 to 10 months of just really hard trying.
I see. If you had to deconstruct what made Backcountry give you that money, what do you think it was?
Showing them the value, I think. Go into it
because I feel like a lot of people here
photos for you.
I feel like a lot of people here don't have, perhaps a ton of audience or whatever, and they might be feeling bad about that. But you clearly just look past that. It's like, I'm gonna reach out anyways. So, what do you think made them do it, right? Because obviously you didn't play the whole follower thing, did you?
No, I didn't. And I think so. If I had to deconstruct it, it was that I was going to do this thing that was relatively rare at the time. I was going to go to Peru. I was going to do this big trek. I was going to tell the story that fit really natively with their gear. And it was kind of a not once in a lifetime opportunity, but it wasn't very common opportunity for them. I'm sure they got approached a lot about, I'm going into the Cascades or the Sierra or, wherever. I'm going hiking a 14er in Colorado and I would like some gear. But I don't think they got approached every day with the opportunity of going to Peru. So I had that opportunity through working for you. It wasn't my own opportunity, but I definitely leveraged it. So I found an opportunity that was already quite rare and then leveraged it. And I only had 7,000 followers, but I didn't say, I'm going to promote it on my feed. I said, I'm going to make these photos for you and I'm going to be in this epic spot. And it's just going to be this once in a lifetime trek. We're going to spend 20 days walking around, insane vistas, and I'll talk about all the gear and recommend it to all my friends.
Yeah, so you had the wits to know that the location was rare, and that it was, they were not going to get that tomorrow from somebody else.
No.
Which I think takes some like, I know that when we started this, I was like, man, your strength is your energy and your thirst to learn. But there's I always say that you're quick to size the situation, and I might have missed that. I might have, not seeing. Sometimes where I go places, I'm like, oh, I'm going to Greenland or whatever, but I'm not thinking, freak, how many people get to go there, right? So, and it's not because of having done it a lot of times. I think the first time I went to Chile or whatever, I just didn't know that it was special. I was just like, I'm going to Chile, that's cool. But taking a second and being like, well, this brand doesn't know. Well, I mean, this brand, doesn't doesn't get a lot of people telling them that. Like you said, like, oh, I'm going to Death Valley or whatever, or to the Eastern Sierras. But Peru is another one.
Yeah. What was the strength of the idea, right? It's always the strength of the story. Like, all right, so if I wanted to go shoot just a farm scene, no matter how beautiful it is, it's probably a lot of farm scenes all over the world, right? So unless I'm like come up with a new angle about farms, telling a story about visiting Antarctica is naturally going to be harder because it's physically harder to get to Antarctica, and there's just less photos of it. So that comes from, literally just saying, well, how much does a plane ticket cost to Antarctica? Is going to be, way more than a plane ticket to Missoula to shoot farmland, right? So if they can't replicate it, if it's hard to replicate, and I knew that I'm probably not going to Peru anytime soon at the time. I thought I'm probably not going there anytime soon, which means they're probably not going there anytime soon. So this will be an opportunity for them. So yeah, I'm always trying to size up like what the value is of the story that I'm telling. And I'm not always good at it, but I'm always trying to tell a story that either I could only tell with my perspective, which is my perspective is kind of based around my history and how I grew up, and as well as my own excitement and personality, or I'm trying to tell a story that is rare because of some resource that I've stumbled upon or been given, whether that be a plane ticket or an opportunity to work with a guide, or once in a lifetime weather event or something like that. I'm always trying to just say like, well, how rare is this? And the rarer it is, the easier it is to catch people's attention with it, especially if you're able to like break it down into like a clickbait headline that you would see on YouTube. If you could have that as the subtitle of your email, once in a lifetime Peru trek, they're probably going to open it. At least you've got them that far, right?
Yeah, it's smart. I'm trying to think back about my first job, but
yeah, tell me how you started.
The website and refresh, because I can't even remember. It's not that I got my old dog or something, but I just can't remember what it was. Okay, so last one on my about. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Tourism Canada. That was the first client, and which is pretty cool to start off with the government.
That's a huge first client.
Yeah, because anybody can trust you after that. Oh, the government trusted you. You've gone through RFP. We didn't, but oops. But you've gone through RFP. You're good to go, right? So I remember what sold that trip was. It kind of reminds me of what you're saying, because I wanted to invite these guys that I met on the internet onto the Yukon, and I was really engaging the community on Instagram, and there was these guys, Michael O'Neill, Jared Chambers, Paul Octavius, just OGs, right? Some of you guys might know them, but it's like not OG, but it's like really the guys who were there at the beginning. And I was like, I want to meet these guys, right? So I went to see the government of Canada, and I just told them literally, I'd like to put together a trip to the Yukon. I researched it. I was just, making this work from my kitchen and from my laptop. And I want to put this trip together and bring these guys to the Yukon. And then, I'm going to need money to pay them, because I assume these guys would need to get paid somehow. And, that's when I went and told them that, and they were kind of sold. But again, it was just like knocking on doors kind of thing, and being fresh off the boat in Vancouver, I remember. So yeah, there was a lot of excitement in it. I think the big, like a lot of people start for the wrong reasons.
Like they want the results of it, but they don't want, like, they're not interested in the journey of it, the excitement of making the actual product happen. They're more into what they think is the lifestyle. And the lifestyle can be really good, but it's also can be really
it can be really bad.
Like you can be somewhere that is less than ideal with an area where it's really hard to shoot photos, and you can be stressing like, I've got to share this or create these photos, and there's nothing to shoot here that fits what I normally do. I've got to like come up with something from scratch. And you can also have a huge long time between clients for no reason that you can like identify.
Yes, the big bridge.
Yeah. So that is if you don't absolutely love the journey or the creation part of it, you're going to be looking for another job. Like it's going to be, and that's fine too. But you're right. Some people aren't excited about it. And I'm constantly excited about learning a new way to tell a story, whether that's a new way in photos or whether that's a new way with video or writing or podcasts. I don't care. I'm just always excited about a new way to tell a story with my perspective or these locations that I know. That always keeps me super stoked and ready to go.
Well, so that I wanted to talk about your Instagram story. So this feels like a very good segue into the curiousness of trying new things. So kind of switching gears, but for those of you guys who haven't seen them yet, Isaac's been making these IG stories for about 2 years now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, December 2017. I think I made my first outside edited, professional camera shot video.
Full on 2 years. So they're like this over-the-top Instagram stories that are built on a 5D or an EOS R, and they're edited. I mean, you edit them on the computer usually, and you put some gems, and they're just really different. What made you want to do that?
So actually, going back to Peru, so we had talked about how, going back to what you said, I think it was actually in the Yukon, you had told me a story about how you used to do Instagram all on your phone. And then maybe it wasn't the Yukon
early
or something
days,
else.
dude.
Yeah, and you said,
only.
I remember seeing these people that we were working with shooting on a big camera, editing while we were at dinner, and we were all laughing at them like, what are you guys doing? That's way overkill. And that's my paraphrase
that was in the trip. Yeah.
So I kind of tucked that away in my brain, and I was like, oh, okay, so like, to grab attention, you have to do something a little bit different, something, what they call novel, which is a mix of new and known. So you still have to do photos, but maybe you do them a little bit higher quality. That was what kind of started catching people's eye on Instagram, is when professional photographers went out and took these, like these thumbnail type photos that really worked well and did them with professional cameras. And like the quality went like from here to here, because you didn't used to be able to upload on the app on Instagram, and it went from here to here. So you told me that story, and I just kind of tucked it away in my brain. And then Snapchat came out, and you couldn't upload onto it at the time.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so Snap Stories. And I remember you and I went to Peru, and we were shooting these Snap Stories, but it was no service, where we'd have to have service like a couple days later. So we would just shoot them and then save them. And then before we uploaded them, we would curate the best snaps that we'd make to make this Snap Story. And I basically harkened back, and I was like, dude, this is the moment. As soon as they open this up for upload, then whoever just really dedicates, even before, I actually didn't even think they would open it for upload. I just said, whoever gets a dedicated iPhone with a mic attached to it and like a windsock and a tripod.
Yeah, you were big on that, I remember.
And like lenses, they're just going to dominate the Snapchat like market. Like they're just going to do so well. It's going to be so different than anything that's on Snapchat. And I know that's not what Snapchat is for, but it's still going to dominate. And I said that, and I said it for like a year and a half.
Didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, I was just like, somebody's going to do this instead of me, right? Like I was just thinking, somebody's going to do this. Like I'm not the video guy at this point. Somebody's going to do it. And then one day, like IG stories came out, and then you could start uploading to IG. And I think I did like a couple of video clips as all of like some landscapes. And I was like, oh, this is for me. Like I could make IG stories that were more interesting than regular IG stories, that had a through line and a story and had an edit, and they could be that I could do a little story of that. Now, also what drove me to that is I wanted to do YouTube. And I remember trying to make my first YouTube video, and I was like, I don't know anything about video. I don't know anything about telling video stories. I cannot possibly fill 10 minutes of a YouTube video, not possible. And so IG stories was like very low barrier for entry. Like you only had to do a 15-minute slide, and it needed to have a beginning and a middle and an end. And of course it's impossible to do 15 seconds, not 15 minutes, 15 seconds. So I'd end up doing, 4 slides or 8 slides. And so I could shoot way less, just focus on the beginning, the middle, and the end. But I didn't have to shoot all day and try and make that into a story. I just had to shoot like the high moments and then combine them. So it's kind of, I wanted to get into YouTube, but didn't know how. And also like, I just thought there was some value to give in this platform that hadn't been given before, that people would be inherently more interested in stuff that was a little bit more put together. Because it would be slightly different, and they might pay attention a little more, maybe not, but at least I would learn how to, the downside was that nobody cared. That could have, like in my brain, if nobody cared about this, that would be not great. But the upside was I would learn how to edit video in a place where if I just wasn't feeling my video edit, I only had to do 15 seconds. So that's where IG stories came from, was a desire to basically keep learning mediums. And then the final reason I wanted to do it is sometimes you go out to shoot photos and the light just sucks. And it's just not like things aren't coming together, but something interesting happens, but you can't make a photo out of that. And I just remember being like, dude, video, you don't have to have good light to tell a good story. It's nice and it helps, but you don't have to have it. You can shoot in the middle of the day. So it gave me something else creative to do when the light sucked, basically. So all three of those kind of turn into this confluence of teaching myself video through IG stories, which is not what I think, not where most people learn how to do video.
It's funny on the YouTube thing. I remember it's definitely a network that I'm sure a lot of these guys are looking at. I remember being on a project in Alberta with a friend named Steve Booker, which you've met. If you guys haven't seen him, check him out on Instagram and YouTube. He's this British guy, really stylish and really funny. So we're in Alberta trying to make some photos, and the light shit, and we're doing a job for the government there, Travel Alberta, and the light's not good. So I'm kind of like running through the motions, like, oh, can we go shoot? I'm stressing out, and Steve's like, bro, just relax. Just relax, man. And I'm like, no. I mean, the light sucks right now. I can't really post any of this, but we have these deliverables to do. It's like, bro, you got to start YouTube. My audience got my back, man. I can put a photo of my socks and they're going to love it. And he took a photo of his socks on the parking lot and posted it to Instagram just to prove a point. Yeah. And I was like, there's no way you sort of build this connection to your people on Instagram. Yeah, back then there was no Instagram stories and no nothing. But I always remember that video, and when you make YouTube, you're the story, right? Is what you do is kind of secondary. You're the story. And I think that's what drives a lot of us to make video is to create this deeper connection. I mean, just like the stuff we're doing right now, when you watch somebody for a long time, it just becomes familiarity and you just support them. So have you found that doing these stories has helped you with that, like with connecting deeply or landing gigs? What else?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think it has been really important in not just my audience knowing me more, which has been great. And I love that. I love to chat with people and for people to kind of know my story. But I've made the craziest connections because I'm basically introducing who I am as a person out into the world all the time, and people will get to know me and then either hire me for a job or ask me on their podcast or, ask me a question about, sorry, getting an Amber Alert. It's going off.
Flood.
Yeah. But yeah, so people would get to know me better. So it's like, I never had to do a resume because people already know who I am and what I'm capable of because I'm talking about it and I have their attention. So it's almost, doing IG stories is not as involved as YouTube, but people get to know like what I'm up to and how I'm doing, and like they see my face, they see what I look like. So I mean, I've got modeling gigs and hosting gigs. Like I did a hosting gig of of an 8-day competition in Mongolia for BMW motorcycles.
Yeah, that's rad.
And like that's nuts. Like that, I had never done anything like that. I never even that had never even been a life goal, or my life goal was to ride across Mongolia, but I had never thought about being a host on TV for anything. And I think all of that comes from being more visible than just photos. Because, I take photos of stuff, not of myself, more often than not. Sometimes I do, but very. You
couldn't have landed that with the photos only. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So it basically creates more depth, so that people know more about who you are, what your perspective is, what your attitude is, how you approach different situations, and what you look like. And humans are tribal. So when in a tribe, you see people daily. You see the people around you. That's how for eons, that's how human culture was. Is you just knew the people who you saw daily. And anybody who you didn't, you naturally mistrusted because you didn't know them. So when you can create a personal connection through video, it's kind of almost like hacking that tribal instinct, and people just feel like they know you even when they may not. Not at all. I mean, I try and be as real as possible. I'm basically the same person on video as I am off video, or at least I like to think I am. But it helps people just kind of understand, like, oh, this guy, he's a fit. Now, it also could go the other way. Like, I'm sure that there have been people who thought my photography was awesome, but they didn't want me to be the face of their company because, you know, I am who I am. I don't know about those instances, but I imagine that it goes both ways. But for the most part, there's just less people out in the world showing who they are on video than there are people, you know, than there are people consuming or not showing it on video.
True.
So you kind of just set yourself apart. If you can just do a short story of your perspective or what you're doing and include your face on IG stories, you set yourself apart.
So you talk about that in the workshop, writing videos for the internet.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and I talk about IG stories and why I think you should do them. A little bit of this in the workshop, but I definitely talk about writing videos for the internet because it is hard. And through conversations with you and with other people, I've kind of built a system of questions that I ask and then answer before I go and make a story, so that I don't get, you know, out there and I'm distracted by some sort of pretty waterfall or wind in the grass, and I come back with like B-roll and no story. It's happened. So like, this is the questions I ask. Yeah.
What's the most important question, you think? Because I have an answer for that, but I'm curious to see what you got.
So I think I don't know if there's a most important question, but I think the premise of the film is like, what is it about? So what are we talking about? What's the journey here? If you can sum that up in one sentence, that's probably the most important part. But I also love, like, what's at stake? You know, like, that's a really important question, because I think you mentioned that a couple of years ago, is like, if I was to walk away now, what would I miss if I didn't stick around? You know, like, or if this person fails at what they're trying to do in their video, what happens? If nothing happens, then why am I even watching?
Yeah, that's from I think that's from Save the Cat, screenwriting book by Blake Schneider. It's a Hollywood screenwriting book, but it's interesting. It's what you're saying is that, you know, if you're ever writing a story or consuming a story and you wonder, you know, and there's a goal, and, you know, if you ask yourself, what if they fail, or what if you fail? You know, if the answer is who cares, then you got to go back to the drawing board and raise the stakes. Essentially, you raise the stakes.
Yeah.
And you don't have to fabricate drama, but there's got to be some challenge there that connects to other humans.
You have to pick a better story. You don't have to fabricate it, but you just have to pick a better story. I mean, I come up with video ideas all the time, and I'll write them down, and I'll never make them, because when I go and ask that question, like, what's at stake, it's just kind of boring. I'm like, you know, what's at stake? I won't get to eat at this restaurant, or what's at stake? I won't get to, you know, ride my bike this far, or something. It's I always want it to be a little bit, what's at stake could be a little bit more dicey, like, only because that's more interesting for me, but also because if it does go wrong, it's also, you know, I don't generally write an entire movie and it's not all made up. It's generally documenting my life, but I still write, like, what's at stake, you know? Like when I went to a YouTube video I recently did this last winter, I went to this lookout, which I had no idea if it was actually open. I didn't know if you could stay there in the winter. My sister had visited it earlier in the year and said that, well, it looked like people could stay there because they were signing logbooks and saying, oh, it was great to camp here. There was no information on the internet about it. I didn't really know exactly what the part was.
The middle of winter.
Yeah, middle of winter, and we're gonna ski up there, and we ended up skinning up for like 6 hours, 3 of that in the dark. And, you know, the last 3 hours in the dark, I'm thinking, like, in my head, like, if we get up there and this thing is locked, I'm gonna lose it. Like, I'm gonna be so frustrated. But that's what made the story interesting, is you wanted to see, is it actually open? You wanted to see, like, can they actually make it up there? Is it as far as as Isaac's sister told him it was, or is it further? You know, we got almost stuck with the car, so we ended up having to add like an additional 4 miles of skinning, and the snow was really sticky. So, like, all of these quote unquote bad things happen. But what that does is it makes intrigue when you're watching, like, do they actually make it? Do they have to, like, just sleep in the woods in the dark and have the most miserable night ever? Or do they have a victory? So that's the other question I ask, is what is a victory? So what's at stake? What happens if they don't make it? You know, what happens if they win? The victory is like, okay, this is really clear. Like, this is what I really want to happen. So I just come up with an adventure that I want to do. And the victory is always the best case scenario. Like, the lookout is open, or I have this cheap split board and it actually works, or I use snowshoes and I love them. Like that would be a victory. And I don't often make the victory, but I always write that so that I know, like,
you hope for it.
If things go perfectly and it's just awesome, this is what my character, which is me in all of my videos, but if you were writing the fiction, what my character would be aiming for, right?
Yeah. I feel like our best, most memorable adventures is the one where things go wrong.
Yeah.
Always. And we've been lucky, knock on wood, we've always made it out. But whenever we get closer to the might not make it out is when things, but we don't really set out to do that. This is what's interesting. We don't set out to fail, but somehow we encounter, I think we're pretty optimistic and we think that things are going to go well, and it doesn't always turn out that way.
I think we have this kind of maybe combination of, we're optimistic. We don't like to admit that things are shitty when they are going shitty. We're just like, oh, it's fixable.
Just keep moving.
Yeah, and also we have an extremely high tolerance for when things go wrong. I think that also goes back to optimistic. We just have a high tolerance for just keeping going when things go wrong. Like it just
it's pretty zen. Yeah.
Yeah, like we're not easily frustrated by things going wrong on an adventure. That's I think it's just part of our nature, but also because we know we've done this enough to know that the ones that we still talk about are where that went wrong. So now we're just like, well, it's going wrong. It's going to be awful right now, but later this is going to be awesome.
You might have a higher tolerance, because I remember I got so mad at these trees when we were skiing from this place. We're skiing from this mountain and it's dark and there's not enough snow, and this half of this mountain has been burned down.
Yeah.
And so there's logs on the ground, but they're not enough snow to cover the logs. And Isaac's you're on a snowboard, and then you're able to cruise through this sort of brush, and I'm just keep getting pose holding, take my skis off, fall through, put my skis back on, and it's like pitch dark. And yeah, I remember I got so mad. That was like probably that.
Yeah,
just the cool trees.
It was dark and it was really horrible. I luckily had the snowboard. And then at some point we got down to flat, but it was still like really brushy. Like the brush had grown back in, but the logs had fallen like this. So it was like this. I literally laid down on my snowboard and paddled like I was surfing, so I could go under the logs on the snow, but like weave through. And it was awesome. And it was so dark that I remember like shouting for you because I didn't know where you were. I couldn't see your headlamp.
I didn't have a headlamp. Yeah. I was just like lighting it with my phone. I was holding my pole, my skis like this.
Right. I forgot. So it was so dark, and I shouted for you. And you were only like 50 feet away, but it took you an additional 15 minutes.
Yeah.
15, 20 minutes to just reach from like
that
50
was the only
feet away.
time.
It was horrible. I've never been so hot and tired from such a short distance.
Well, for the record, that's the only time where a snowboard has been superior to skis, I think.
That's debatable, but I will say that it was definitely superior that time.
For sure, your jungle machine.
That was actually the mission that I broke. So we had all the warning signs. I broke my snowboard, like it splits into skis, and I broke it before we even made it off of the flat ground, skinning up. So I broke it. We'd gone like 2 miles, and we still had like 4 or 5 more to go. And then we had to come down. So as I'm snowboarding down, my snowboard's actually broken. And then we get into all that mess. And and
then it gets worse and worse. Yeah. It's, that's a good one. So I know we have limited time. We could talk about these all day. But we should have a podcast just about all the times that things went wrong. But for now, I want to close with a last question for you, and then we can do some Q&As for these guys. I see a few questions posted, and then you posted some of the documents, so we'll take these as many as we can. You end the workshop talking about obsession.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what made you want to end on that?
So, this is my personal perspective on any bit of success that I've had, but any of the successes that I've had in my life, or where I felt like there was momentum in my life, like where things were generating change that was positive in my life. So for instance, when I got into vacation rentals, or when, I used to be into snowboarding so much so that, I would do some competitions and have a little success there. Anytime that I felt that I was gaining momentum, and this happened in my freelance career, it's because I was just obsessed with the learning and the details and the how to do it better and the excitement of doing it well. I was just obsessed with everything about it. And I still am with creating stories. Like that's all I want to do. So I go to sleep thinking I can't wait to do this in the morning. And in the morning I do that all day. And then I'm always just obsessed with it. And for me, I know people that are really good at going to work every day and doing the same thing every day and not necessarily loving it, but doing it and saving up money and then going on vacation, doing that. And I don't begrudge them, but I was not born with that ability. I don't have the ability to do anything for any period of time that I don't like or I'm not interested in. I'm very low discipline when it comes to that type of thing. So the only thing that I have going for me is that when I'm really interested in something, I'm able to lean into that and just like let that lead. And that is my work ethic, is my obsession, my interest in that thing. So when I talk about it in the workshop, I talk about leaning into that. And a lot of times I used to get made fun of for that, or people would be like, geez, chill out. Or like, why are you still doing this?
Somebody told you to chill out.
Yeah. I mean, I had 6 kids in my family. So somebody always had a counter opinion. But it can come off sometimes as like pretty one-dimensional. You're kind of basically obsessive is not necessarily good connotation. It doesn't mean good things for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I've taken that as kind of my fuel to really help me focus my attention towards something that I am just happy with. And look, when I first started out in my 20s thinking like, what am I going to do for money and for the rest of my life and my career? I think most people started looking around and going like, what can I do for a lot of money? I want to be rich. I want to make a lot of money. And to me, I learned that was backwards. It was like, what can I do that would interest me so much so that I would be so obsessed about it that I would learn enough about it to be top 5% in my field. So my small niche is adventure photography and filmmaking. That's my very small niche. But I don't know if I'm top 5%, but that's where I'm aiming. So for me, that was more of the question. It's like, if I'm obsessed with this, I have a competitive advantage. And everybody I've ever known who's really good at something and better at something than I am, I look at it and I go, they're obsessed with this. They have a competitive advantage because every single day they wake up and they think about this, they do something to get to the next level in this, and they naturally do that. They don't have to pretend or make up their drive to go do this, right? So like somebody who is in car sales and just loves the process of the sale is always going to be better than a salesperson who just wants to make money selling cars. Always. Doesn't matter what their education is. It's just always going to be that way. So that's what I mean by obsession. It's lean into it. If this is what you're obsessed about it, lean into it, and your brain, your passion, your heart, your everything will naturally lead you forward and make you better at this. And when you get better, you get resources and you get opportunity.
That's huge. Kind of echoes what Gary Vee used to say in the day, right? It's like the nonstop grind. And I mean, I've been inspired by him. You've been inspired by him, I think. I think it's it goes to show how much it's important also to listen to so much different topics, right? Like you as a business person were interested in photography, started to look into that, and then ended up being obsessed. So I think, and this is a larger conversation, but I think a lot of people might have trouble knowing what they're really interested in. So the foolproof test is to do what you're saying, is like try to obsess about it. And if it feels hard, then it's probably not for you.
Yeah.
If it just feels like it sucks.
There's going to be hard moments, but if you're just not interested in it, like you just find yourself, flipping on Netflix instead of flipping through, a workshop or just researching the best, settings for this camera so that you can do, cinemagraphs with it or whatever story you want to tell. Then if you constantly find your attention focused somewhere else, I'm not saying it's not for you. I'm just saying that it's going to be a little bit more difficult than somebody who can naturally focus on it. And that's fine. But you are going to find your thing. And look, I'm 36 years old. So I didn't start doing this till I was 32. And I spent all of my 20s doing what I call thrashing. So trying every single thing, trying to be something, right? So it takes some time to find out what your obsession and passion is. You're not going to find it right away, and that's fine. That's totally fine. Your schedule is your schedule, but you shouldn't just give up on it because you haven't found what you're obsessed about or passionate about.
Yeah. That's gold. Inspiring.
Yeah, let's jump into those questions, huh?
Yep, it is. You got 10 minutes. Right. So if you see one that catches your eye, go for it. Otherwise, I'll pick one.
Okay, I'm going to just pull up my screenshots from the people who.
Start with IG. All right, start with IG.
You can go for it. You can do that. And I got to just grab one here off my phone.
Yep. Let me see which ones I can pin for you here.
All right, here's one, and nobody ever answers this question, so I'm just going to go ahead and answer it. How much money do you make, bro? Nobody ever answers that question, right?
No.
Should I answer it? No, I'm going to answer it. I make on average about $65,000-$70,000 a year now in the last couple of years. When I started out, I made $30,000 the first year, which was half of what I made when I quit my job. Hopefully that'll continue to go up. I live on very little amount of money just by my nature. I don't need a lot. I want a lifestyle. I don't want a lot of money. So that's what I make. A lot of people make a lot of different. So that really doesn't give you any information that you couldn't. That doesn't help you. It's an interesting topic, but it doesn't help you knowing what you could make if you jump into this, because you might make nothing, or you might make 500 grand a year. That has nothing to do with what I make.
It shows the possibilities, though.
Yeah.
I like how, the country of Norway, the country of Norway makes public everybody's tax declaration, so you can know what everybody makes in the country. And I think that's so interesting.
Yeah, it definitely takes it off of being taboo. I think in the United States, it's not pleasant to talk about what you make, because you can make somebody less than you feel less, or you can make somebody above you feel like you're lame. But I don't really care. I mean, I'm always curious. I'm always the first person to ask what somebody makes.
When it comes to income, sometimes I get caught up in I want to be able to buy this motorcycle or whatever, and then I just pause and think about the things that make me happy. And every morning when I come out of my bedroom in the morning, I can see a basket with tomatoes, a basil plant, and some garlic, right? And I love food. Not a secret to you and to some of you guys. So I'm like, if it's just that sight makes me happy. So if I can just have that every day and some bread, I'll be thrilled, right? Sometimes I just stop and think, what really matters to me is just having good food and sharing it with people that I like. So, it's fine if all goes to shit and you don't make any money. You can still have your friends and your tomatoes, right? So I always go back to that whenever COVID, and you're like, oh, it's going to be interesting, right? A lot of people are going to make about a third of what they're going to they usually make. So because of, all the brands are on budget freeze. So yeah, it's just a good way to reframe it for me is just to find what matters to me, right, most, instead of just chasing.
Yeah. For me, I there's two things that come to mind right when I wake up. One is that I generally ignore my alarm every morning, and I love that. I don't want to wake up tired ever. So unless I'm doing a job and it's for sunrise or whatever, I'll totally wake up 3 a.m. I don't care.
You're selling the freelance lifestyle.
Yeah. But the real thing is my on average, I wake up when I'm not tired, which is amazing. It's so good to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, not be tired. So that's wonderful. To me, that's more valuable than money. The other thing is I live in a wonderful spot. I rent a house on a river, and it's just wonderful. And it's not the nicest house in the world, but it's all I need. I don't want to be anywhere else.
I got a question for you. Boom. Start. Do you see the question when I hit start answering?
I do not see any questions. I don't know if there's a button I need to hit or whatever.
I don't know. Let me read it to you. Dale Butcher, best practices for, I probably butchered Butcher's name. Best practices for building value for clients when I don't have an enormous Instagram following.
Oh, okay. So basically, I break down in what I offer to clients as distribution, which is like a magazine, content creation, which is videos and photos for them. And then the third would be personality work. So do I want to be the face of what they're making? So do they want me to basically host the video that I'm going to be making for them? So I kind of break it down to those three. There's a bunch of other things, but let's just talk about those three. So clearly you don't have any distribution. You don't have your own Instagram or the equivalent of a modern day magazine. So you can't offer that. So you need to really focus on the quality of the content that you make, get really good at getting better at that, and then position it in a way that shows how good it is. Maybe get some testimonials about how wonderful it is from past clients. If you don't have work that works for your client, let's say you're trying to work for a beverage brand, like a wine brand, and you don't have any work to show them so that they trust you, that you can do that, buy some bottles of wine,
go shoot it.
A couple of people and shoot it. And shoot that, not for a brand for free necessarily, but go shoot this so that you have it on your portfolio, and then show them, be like, hey, this is what I can do for you. I can even do it better if you give me more resources so that we can rent an Airbnb in wine country or whatever. That's content. And then hosting, again, if you don't have experience hosting, we just talked about IG stories, get to know, so people know what you're like in front of camera. Go do it. You always, in this line of work, you always have to do the work first. Always, 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 always. Like I can't tell you, I mean, I think I did over 65 Instagram vertical videos, edited them, shot them with a big camera, edited them and posted them on Instagram before I ever got hired to make a client video, ever. So 65 times. That's like, you know, and when I first started out, like each video was taking me like 10 hours.
You're walking the line.
Yeah. So you got to do things a lot. So that's how you bring value to people when you don't have like a large Instagram account, is you just show that your work is wonderful. And to show that your work is wonderful, you have to have done that work a lot and actually have wonderful work. So that's the way to do it. Yeah.
And you get into that in the workshop, and I think there's an episode about how you approach brands, and there's one we talk about creating your own value.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. We talk in the workshop, more in detail about that, not just a 30-second answer.
Boom. All right, it's in the workshop. Let's see what else we got. I got one that's upvoted. All right, from Jack. What do you think works best? Introducing yourself to clients/editors and pitching yourself to see if they have projects they want you to work on, or pitching your idea and hoping it aligns?
I mean, success ratio is going to be like, for me, 3 times the first and 1 time the second. So like I will always pitch my idea, but most of the time it gets turned into, oh, cool, we're not doing that right now, but you might be doing something else. Yeah. So I still pitch the idea, but 3 times out of 4, they're wanting me to jump on a project that they've already made and to bring my special perspective or sauce to it, or, sometimes you just reach out to brands and say, I'd love to help you. Do you guys have anything going? I don't even pitch them a project. Coming up with an idea takes time, and then explaining that idea in a pitch deck or other ways, or even on phone calls, it can be a massive amount of time and work. Reaching out to a brand and saying, like, this is what I've done. I'd love to work with you guys. I think we're a match. It's more scalable. So it definitely gets you more work that way than it does the idea. But the idea parts push your work further and your brand further, and oftentimes pay more. Yeah, per job.
Boom. I agree.
Okay, I think I got one here.
Bring it.
So this kind of goes on. We're going to go back on the income one. Somebody says, how long does it take to have a steady income through freelance? So, I mean, when you think you have steady income, then you probably don't. So it's all about saving, man. You just have to save your stuff. Like, there'd be times where I have $10,000 in the bank and I'm like, I really want to buy this thing I've been wanting for 3, 4, 10 years. And I don't, because I'm not sure when the next job is coming. And I want to have $20,000 in the bank before I spend that 10. I guess the short answer would be, for me, it took about 2 years before I wasn't like, just having these gaps where I was basically living off of my savings all the time. So, but it just depends. It just depends on what you do and the clients you get, and how aggressive you are with reaching out to brands for new work. I know people that have been doing this for years and they're doing great for 6 years. They're making all sorts of money. And then 1 year, they're just not great. So it's all about saving. Your consistent income is making enough income to not eat it all in the same month. That's what consistent income looks like when you're a freelancer. It's saving your own money, being a damn adult. And I'm saying that to myself because that took some time. So saving your own money, and you make it consistent by just dribbling in little bits over time instead of like going like, sweet, I've got $10,000, I'm buying a new truck.
Yeah, not the way to do it. I mean, I've been saving 20 to 30% every year of whatever income is made. Just, I mean, first because I live in the US and there's no retirement system. But second is because like I was telling you the other day, I sleep better at night when I know that I'm dialed and I don't have to, if I don't want to take work for the next 6, 7, 8 months, 12 months, I don't have to. Then I think that gives you more freedom creatively to make your best work. Obviously, it's a tough place to get to. But starting out, I think it took me, I don't know. I think Andrew was working at the time. She was a waitress in Vancouver when I was starting out, like really serious. And she was bringing in more money than I was just by waiting tables.
Yeah.
So it was great that we had this combo going on. So I didn't really feel like we had to be aggressive on the saving, or I don't know. It probably took 6 months. Yeah. Of going hard at it when I was able to quit my shop key holder / manager job.
Yeah.
6 months. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's up to everybody's ability to save. So like if you get a lot of big jobs, then you're going to have a big shovel. You're going to be able to make a big pile of cash. If you get a bunch of small jobs, then you
got to do it anyway.
Work on the side, or it's going to take longer, and you just need to make sure you cut your lifestyle for longer. That's another thing too that nobody ever wants to talk about. But like, I don't travel and have not traveled without getting paid in the last 4 years. I just don't. Like, it's part of my job. People like invite me to go to Hawaii, and I'm like, cool, I don't have money for plane tickets because I don't have a job there. I just don't. That's not part of my lifestyle. I want it to be, but it's not yet. So you got to cut that lifestyle. And that's the part that, like, I have a great lifestyle because I get paid to do it, but I don't go on a vacation ever. Never. My vacation is at my house. I have not in the last 4 years paid for a vacation. It just doesn't happen. And that's the sacrifice I make. I will eventually get there, but consistent income is about dispersing your income over the year. It's not about getting a job every 2 weeks, because that doesn't happen.
Yeah. I got a question from, let's see, Andrea Hester. Second to last question. Let's do that. How do you get out of the problem of not having good enough gear? And this one is specially selected for you, Isaac. But not having enough money to buy better quality equipment because you're just getting started. And I'm saying that because you love to do with what you have. Starting out, just figure it out.
So, okay. So this is kind of a two-part answer. The first part is that if you have a starter camera, you're always going to be frustrated with it. So I believe that a 10-year-old professional grade photo camera is better than a 2-year-old or brand new starter grade camera. So I'm not sponsored by any camera company, so I can say this, but for instance, a T6i from Canon that's brand new is going to be not as good as a Canon 5D Mark II from 10 years ago. It's just not. Like, you're not going to get that feel from your images. So they cost the exact same. They're the exact same cost now. So buy used, buy professional grade, get as good as you can, ask a lot of questions of people who will answer it, and get some professional lenses. Start with that. Spend about $500 to $800 on your camera kit used. Okay, so almost anybody can save up $500 to $800 over the course of 6 months doing Instacart work or Ubering or whatever. Okay, a little bit of extra on the side. Start with that, and then your frustration will be much lower than having new professional grade equipment. So once you have that, then just focus on your craft. I mean, I got a nice camera right out the gate, as nice as I could get. But I only had a 16 to 35 millimeter lens for the first 2 years that I did professional photography, which is not great for portraits. It's not great for a lot of things. It's great for a lot of things, but it's mostly not great for a lot of things. But that's all I had. And I just did what I needed to do. I remember getting a job and being like, I should probably rent a lens for this, like a 24 to 70 or a 50 mil, so that I can get this better. And then I just didn't. And then I shot it anyway. And it was a little bit less good than I thought it could be, but it was still great. And I still learned. And then I started renting lenses, and I would rent the 50 mil to try it. I would rent a 24 to 70. I'd rent a 70 to 200. And that was cheap. And I would build that into the cost of doing the job. So A lens rental is anywhere from $70 to $300 for a week, depending on which lens you get. So you can build that into any job. If you get an $800 job or a $400 job, you can rent a $70 lens for that $400 job, and you're still, if you think that's going to bring the quality of your work up, you can do that. So
worth it.
It's easy to get frustrated and be like, my gear is holding me back. But the real truth of the matter is that if you bought a professional grade camera, it's not holding you back. What's holding you back is just your inability to just go out and do the best you can with what you have. It gets, yeah. It's not what's holding you back.
I agree. I got another one, unless you have one ready.
No, go for it.
All right. And this is another one. People love these dollar questions.
This is turning into the money episode.
You're in a good run, or keep you going. From Alex Kosher. I hope this isn't too personal, but as a freelancer, what do you find was the best way to charge clients and determine how much you should be paid?
You should charge them as much as you can within their budget. Okay. And by that, I mean that, and Alex has told me this before, you don't want to leave any money on the table. You don't want to give them a deal unless they're asking for a deal. How to determine what to charge is I did a ton of research. I made friends with a lot of photographers and with agents, and I would ask them, what is the going rate for this? So I would find out just by an aggregate of asking people like, hey man, I got this job. They want 10 photos. They want social rights and web rights and print rights. And they also want me to do 2 IG stories. What I don't even know. Like, what's the typical rate for that? And here's the other thing. This question is a moving target because I don't often get paid the same exact for the same package, depending on the company. They might not have the budget I want, but there might be a cool company, could be a mountain bike company that I really want to work with. Not as much money as, say, a whiskey company that I don't necessarily want to work with. Those two pay differently. So I'm always just asking, and I remove my ego from the equation and go, I don't know. I don't need to posture like I do. Will somebody please help me? And that's how I find out what I can pay. But that's on my side of the fence. On the customer side of the fence, just ask what their budget is. Say, look, what are you wanting and what is your budget? How many photos do you want? How many videos do you want? And what is your budget? And if they come back and say $500 for 2 videos and 10 photos, you run away because like 2 videos are going to take you 2 weeks, you know? So like that doesn't make sense. You're not going to be able to eat, right? You have to make a certain amount of money in a certain amount of time. So always ask the budget. Don't be shy about asking what their budget is. And if they won't tell you, they either are inexperienced and don't know, so you'll just toss them a number, or they're trying to jerk you around. Just everybody can share their budget. It's just so much easier if people are clear. So just ask. And if they don't know, then say, okay, well, how about this? And you might want to overquote, you know?
Yeah, I love giving them a range.
Yeah, pick a number that you are kind of uncomfortable to ask for, but if you got the job, you'd be thrilled. You'd be like, oh my gosh. That's always a safe place to start if they just won't give you a number. But it's up to the client to really tell you what they can afford. And then you can make it a math problem. Like, okay, well, you wanted 10 images, but you only have money for 5 images. So let's do that. Yeah.
I found a good way to walk around that if it's something that looks kind of big and they don't want to share. Sometimes I'll just show them a case study, a big one, the biggest one I got. And I'm like, yeah, this cost, this was a $300,000 project, for example. And they're like, ooh, if they start saying that on the call, I'm like, okay, good to know then. And then they start to open up like, yeah, we don't have as much budget, but we can probably find a third of that or whatever. Then you know that at least you get a reaction out of them without quoting anything. Just, no, I'm just showing you this because it's the biggest one I've done, but we also have done this examples. I found that was quite useful.
Yeah. And you know what? If you don't have a case study, because you probably don't have a $300,000 case study, you can reference this one, or you can reference one that your buddy told you about because you asked. Somebody will tell me, that they did a video for 25 grand. And so in a conversation, somebody will be like, well, we don't even know what videos cost. And I'll be like, well, a video of this caliber, I'll send them a link. This costs $25,000. Is that what you want? And they'll say, actually, yeah, that's exactly what we want. Or they'll say, no, we want to do something a little bit shorter, but the same quality, or we want to do something for $15,000, but we'd like to get as close to that quality as possible. How can we do that? So you don't have to use your own case study, but yeah, using somebody else's example or even an example is going to really go a long way towards getting them to open up and say, oh, that is what we want. We do have that budget or we don't.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think this is the time we got. I want to thank you, Senor Isaac, for being here tonight. And now we're going to make some pizza with the fams. But before I do that, I got to say a few things. Reminder that there's way more in the workshop, in how to become a freelancer workshop from Isaac and Strohl, and it's on pre-order until Thursday midnight. So if you want to get it half off and be an OG, do so before Thursday, please. If you don't, then you don't. But just keep in mind that what we've gone over, we just kind of skim over the surface. There's just so much more there, good stuff in there. And I love your energy in here, and that energy carries to the workshop. And it's just much easier to learn from somebody like you who's pumped than from, random YouTube thing. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining, and thanks, Isaac.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity to make the workshop and share with everybody. I appreciate everybody who's on the Strohl platform and has bought it so far and is going to buy it. You guys are awesome.
Well, thanks everybody. See you in a few seconds, Isaac.
Okay, later.
Bye, guys.